right, so round 9 of day 2 of Duels of Runeterra, number 12. We have Nolagold versus WindingGod. Both two very prominent names in the Legends of Runeterra competitive space. We have Nolagold playing Jinx, Twisted Fate Casino, pretty sick. Zed Bannerman and Darrowing with the typical Draven. WindingGod is playing the Ezreal Karma. Callista Bannerman, Callista being the only non-Demacia card in there, and your typical MF Sejuani. Don't forget to sub, don't forget to like, and don't forget to check the description for all the information you need for entering Duels of Runeterra and the deck links and all that good stuff. So without further ado, round 9, day 2, Duels of Runeterra 12. I mean, it's just hard, man. In any card game, it's hard on the design side and on the player side to really just have consistency in the cards and the gameplay and the players themselves. So pretty cool to see this many recognizable faces so soon in this game.
Boy, do I know it. And we are into game number 1, Nolagold queuing up the Darrowing and WindingGod, getting started off with this Callista Bannerman. And, you know, as we had mentioned, I don't think that anything is necessarily, like, heavily favored against this Darrowing deck, so it makes sense that Nolagold's going to come out of the gate swinging, although I am curious to see what was actually banned out, if not this Darrowing deck. You know, it could have been the Bannerman. We do see 3 Rangers Resolve in Nolagold's version of that deck as well, so maybe, you know, WindingGod just not wanting to take that matchup, but that would mean that Casino and Darrowing are on the table.
Yeah, and this is what he was saying earlier. I think you mentioned that he tweeted out, every round, this Casino deck is making it through. It's that deck that everybody's like, I don't have to worry about that. That thing's junk, and it's not looking like it's junk, so very excited to see it here.
Okay, he banned because WindingGod, player number 1 to ban Casino. This could be Nolagold's downfall.
Oh, he did ban Casino.
That is what Twitch chat is telling me. I'm inclined to believe everything that I read on the internet. So.
Oh my god, yeah. Wow, okay, so yeah, maybe this is the one loss that, and you know, WindingGod, you know, the type of guy he is, I actually totally would have expected that from him, to be honest with you.
Okay, WindingGod actually going to line up the Callista block, which is going to force the Spinning Axe out of Nolagold. I think I like this a fair amount. I don't think this is a matchup where you're actually going to get to, like, level this Callista and play for that in a meaningful manner. So getting the extra card out of your opponent is going to feel pretty impactful here, and that does mean that, you know, this War Chef is going to be okay to block onto this Legion Saboteur as well, and just kind of get that free block off. And, you know, Cytherea, she's just going to chill in the back waiting for a Bannerman or a Genevieve or something to come down before she can actually have an impact on this game.
Yeah, and we already see the Draven on board, and we have talked about this every time I think that we've seen this Darius Draven deck, where this Draven actually gets insane value, not just with the axes, but just with, you know, quick attack trading with units. You can see the blocks, the way they're lined up. You know, WindingGod can't block anything effectively, or can't block the Draven effectively. So this Draven might just do work here, as it has done in the past, and get a lot of value, and in turn get a lot of damage off on WindingGod.
Okay, Basilisk Rider, no whammy. This is one of the worst allegiances you can possibly miss. Okay, get
yay! I feel like we should have
even see Nolagold cut down on the atrocities, is only running the 2 Shadow Isle cards to, you know, sort of maximize his chances with this Basilisk Rider.
I feel like we should have like an allegiance counter off to the side here when we start top cut. See how many times it gets missed. Nobody likes missing a Bannerman.
We can't read, we can't do math, we can't update match scores properly, and you want an allegiance counter?
I know, that's too much multitasking. That's a good point. I put too much on our shoulders, man. Oh, man. So we see the Grizzled Ranger will help a lot, especially on the offensive. Obviously, on the defensive, with that 1 health, it's going to have a problem blocking something like that Basilisk Rider, which did, in fact, hit the Allegiance. So I'm pretty positive he does have to block this on the side of Nolagold. It seems like he's definitely thinking about it, but I will say this is a very hard decision to make.
Yeah, and Nolagold's already down pretty low. You know, he did take that scout attack and that, you know, open attack, or the non-scout attack. I don't know what to call the real combat phase. So that is another 6 damage push through, and he's already down to 9 life. So for a deck that is typically the aggressor, he's actually falling on the back foot a little bit. This is sort of his turn to swing it around, but WindingGod does have a couple of answers that he could throw out. This double Noxian Fervor could play in huge, but he's only got mana for 1 of them currently.
Yeah, I will say, I mean, he could have a concerted strike. So with 5 mana, if Winding God does keep 5 mana open, okay, so he does go out with the Quinn. So Nolagold will likely push through a fair amount of damage here. The question is, like you said, he's not going to have a whole lot of mana for all those Noxian Fervors. So I'd be curious to see if by his next attack turn, if he's going to have quite enough damage to finish it off.
And Winding God is actually going to do a pretty good job of preserving his life total. You know, really just not... This is something that I like out of Winding God. A lot of players, you know, they draw their champions and they're like, okay, this is, you know, sort of my win condition. I can't afford to lose this. Winding God understands that in a Bannerman-style deck, these do not matter. He was, you know, more than willing to throw that Callista in front of a Precious Pet to get the axe out of Nolagold. Now we're seeing Quinn thrown away for a preservation of life onto this Basilisk Rider. And depending on Winding God's hand, if he's got something like a Genevieve in there for turn 6 on the attack, he's going to be in a pretty good position as long as he maintains some semblance of a board that he's going to be able to do here.
You know, I'm glad you mentioned the Quinn because that's something that we've talked about in the past as well. Like when you're playing against an aggro deck, your normal strategy goes out the window, everybody. You preserve your life. And that's exactly what Winding God is doing here. 4 health is much better versus Overwhelm units than all the other crap 1 health units that you have on the field that really are just going to hurt a whole lot when they start blocking these Overwhelm units. And we do see the first of the Noxian Fervors come out, and this is setting up lethal probably over the next couple of turns, depending on what Nola draws here.
Yeah, I really like this Noxian Fervor, you know, utilizing the health of a dying unit. Or it wasn't going to die, it was going to live at 1, but you don't really want to block with that anyway. It would just get challenged out by the Valor, so you might as well sacrifice it for a little bit of damage. And this just sets you up better to top deck something like a Decimate or another Noxian Fervor down the line. He was going to be in Darius range anyway, so that's kind of a consideration that's off the table. Transfusion off the top, and here's the thing about Transfusion. When this card works, oh boy does it work. It's absolutely busted, but in situations like this, it really doesn't feel good. And I think Nolagold's actually going to have to run it out just to be able to kill this Genevieve and not die this turn.
Yeah, and he's going to have to lose... He's going to have to lose the Ballista as well. I mean, which means he's pretty much losing all of his tools to be the aggressor here. He will probably be able to Noxian Fervor on the second block one of these units just to get the 3 damage off, and then pray to God he top decks something good, is what I think might be the line of play here. Or like you said, the Transfusion could be an option. He might have to play it just to make sure that he lives. But yeah, definitely a rough spot for Nola. Not much he can really do about this. Winding God just had way more aggression drawn early on here.
Yeah, and it looks like, so what I would imagine happens here is, yeah, Winding God lines up these attacks. Nolagold's going to have to Transfusion to kill the Genevieve, and then he's going to eat 8 damage, which is just going to put him down to 1 life. And as you mentioned, you know, there's still outs that Nolagold has. If he top decks a Darius, this could just be game over if we don't see a concerted strike out of Winding God. But, you know, he is in a rough position without having... The problem is he doesn't have the mana to play this Noxian Fervor this turn, which means that, you know, Winding God's going to stay at that 6 life. Nolagold doesn't have a unit to sort of pair with that, and there are a couple of top decked outs. This bear is going to go back down to 4 HP at the end of this turn, which does open up Darius as, you know, a clean, you know, 6 damage overwhelm sort of win here. But Nolagold's on the ropes in a matchup like this, and both players just starting off extremely aggressively, and Winding God maintaining the board a little bit better.
Yeah, it feels really bad, like you said, to draw this Transfusion right now. I mean, didn't really get a Crimson Disciple or anything to use with it.
Oh, he did, and he discarded it to the Spinning Axe.
Oh.
And that is where Winding God's Callista block is paying dividends.
Oh, I did not catch that. Okay, then that... oh, that feels really bad. Wow, so he just let... Doesn't he just die?
He just dies.
Maybe... Oh, okay, well... Alright. Well, I would have liked to have seen his next draw, at least.
Yeah, you know, as we mentioned, Darius off the top was a potential for lethal if we didn't see specifically...
like any answers from Winding God.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's odd that he didn't at least try that, take that opportunity. I mean, maybe he just didn't think about it because, like, he was just thinking maybe something else would attack again because of Scout. I mean, you know, it's probably an easy miss, but...
yeah.
The percentage chance that he actually won that was incredibly low. So
yeah, Blevins is saying it looks like he roped out.
Oh, he ran out of... oh, okay. That feels bad. I hate that. I hate when you really just, like, can't make a decision because it's just so equal, like, as to which one will give you the most chance to win the game, and then you just decide to make no decision. Then you hate yourself for it afterwards.
Yeah, and Nolagold, so he did ban out the Pilfer deck out of Winding God, so we are going to see this Ezreal Karma, you know, which is going to pair pretty well into, you know, a couple of the decks that Nolagold has left, it's not a phenomenal matchup into the Draven Darius. It is probably, I mean, I think it's a better matchup than the Heimer Vi. I think that your removal suite in the early game is a little bit better for a deck like this. You have Claws of the Dragon to come out on 2 and sort of contest things like the Crimson Disciple, but Nolagold's hand sucks.
Wow, you couldn't say it lightly, huh?
No, this is, I mean, there's a lot of potential for the top decks to fix this over the next couple of turns, but at the moment, he's going to be floating a lot of turns.
See, I think your pro tip earlier, I think you nailed it. I just realized that intro dub had typed decks and deck, and my idiot self put its deck lists. So I'm going to go ahead and do that in Nightbot right now so that we stop having this problem for the rest of the cast.
All right, so this, yeah, Nolagold's getting a little bit bailed out by his top decks. It's a little awkward for him that so far things have been off curve. He top decked a 2-drop on 3, a 3-drop on 4. If things maintain this way, you know, Basilisk Rider is going to be coming out next turn. And obviously Nolagold doesn't want to block this. Any unit damage that you get in on an Ezreal deck does kind of feel like cheating, just because you do have the capabilities to 20-0 your opponent. And now, actually, we're going to see a 1-drop on 5, and that does at least open up the transfusion possibilities for Nolagold, who's going to throw that out the window and just throw this Darius at his, or this Draven at his opponent's face, getting the D Noxus brothers' names mixed up a little bit.
Also updated the match score. So WindingGod, for anybody who's just getting back, did win the first game, and as Boulevard so lightly and politely put it, Nolagold's hand is in terrible shape right now. So we'll see if he can scrape up a win with this this Darrowing deck that honestly has seen a ton of success. So it's kind of odd to see such bad hands come out of this deck.
Yeah, I mean, with this Crimson Disciple especially, you know, he's still got some options. The double Decimate, as bad as your hand does start off, that is still 8 damage represented at your opponent. That's going to put them into the Darius range. This Disciple does offer up a little bit more damage with these transfusions. And all in all, when it's said and done, I think Nolagold, if these transfusions, for example, both come out onto the Crimson Disciple in order to push through 2 damage, WindingGod's basically at 3 life. And that was a bad hand out of the Darius Harrowing deck.
That was really bad, yeah. And now all of a sudden he's at 11. So it's good to see that it is able to come back from that. And that's what I was talking about before too. With like, this is why I love this Darrowing deck so much. Is it is actually super consistent. Like for usually in other games when you play Burn, it's like you either win really quick or you don't. And this deck, like, even sometimes, if it doesn't win quick, it can sometimes still, well, you know, its strategy of top-decking Harrowing late in the game. So it can still top-deck a Harrowing or draw some other strong cards like a Darius to really push through that late-game damage and really have a wide spread of points in the game when it can actually win.
Yeah, and I'm curious to see how Nolagold is going to continue to play this one out. He does have that Harrowing available for him on the next turn, and of course that does represent a Legion Grenadier in the death pool, so that is just another 2 guaranteed damage if that is sort of the strategy that he wants to go for. Here it looks like we are going to see the Transfusion out onto the Draven, and that means that this Ezreal's Mystic Shot is probably going to try to pick off either the Disciple or the Draven, in which case he can fire off that second Transfusion, push another 2 damage at WindingGod, and then if he really wants to, fire off that Harrowing on the following turn, and that could be very close to lethal. I think all said and done, that puts WindingGod at 1 after the Decimate comes out.
And you were saying he had a sucky hand.
And I said he could get bailed out by his top deck. I cover all my bases.
That's being a caster for you. You say one thing, and then all of a sudden they draw a card, and all of a sudden it doesn't make sense anymore.
I can't believe that some players have the audacity to play a card when I'm in the middle of making a point and I have to throw my well-crafted soliloquy out a window.
Ooh, soliloquy! I like the vocab. Look at you.
You mentioned earlier, this is the vocab lesson stream.
Yeah, that's like the 4th word. Oh God, I don't even know. That's how like weird of a word it was.
Or something?
Oh, geez. Oh God, no. Why can't I even remember it now? Oh, I don't know. It'll come to me. It'll come to me soon. Right. I feel like we should start a notepad of the words, though, so we can pull it up at the end of the cast, and then we can see what we've learned today. It's like a class. I got this. Here we go. Notepad.
All right. So Nolagold has the Darius, is a little bit hesitant to play it, understands that Will of Ionia could be a really big blowout on this turn, as it will not leave him with enough mana to play that Decimate. Thought about firing off the Harrowing, but really doesn't have a lot in the death pool, and, you know, once again, Deny would be sort of a blowout. He is low on life. WindingGod does have a lot of elusives. There is potential for Nolagold to just die on the next turn, as this is, I think, 7 elusive damage represented if you count the Ezreal's Mystic Shot. Putting yourself at 4 against this deck is a very scary position to be in.
Shellacking.
Shellacking, yeah, there we go.
Shellacking, that's what it was. And I forget who, I think BBG gave, or BBG received a shellacking in his first game and then came back to win 2-0. That's an example for everybody, just in case you needed an example.
It's better than the Google example that brought up the election of 1982.
And that is technically an Urban Dictionary term, so.
All right, so it looks like WindingGod does have something lined up. You know, Static Shock could be disastrous here. That would commit quite a bit of mana and allow Nolagold to go for sort of this transfusion blowout. There are still options available to WindingGod at that point, but, you know, what you see is what you get here on the casting side of things. We can't speculate about 4 cards deep into the stack. We'll just kind of let you know. Keep you updated as the cards come out, and in the meantime, WindingGod, about to run out of time, is just a concussive palm.
Yeah, and that is going to prevent the other 2 damage from coming through from the Precious Pet. This Draven, again, getting some serious value going. And I don't know, do you consider leveling the Draven here? I think not, just because WindingGod's still sitting on 5 mana.
I think every card in your hand is pivotal, and we haven't seen Draven fire off an axe yet, so he would have to fire off 2, and I cannot imagine what card I want to discard to not only try and level the Draven, but like put it in such a risky scenario where my opponent does still have, you know, so much mana available to them, and I have a 1 health Draven.
Yeah, and honestly, I agree. Decimate, Harrowing, and Darius are all, like, integral to his strategy, so I think he actually needs those 3 cards to finish out the game. I think these axes are going to be... I mean, one of them he can use by discarding another axe, but until then, they're pretty useless right now.
And the Will of Ionia is going to make Nolagold feel a little bit better. I still think you fire off the Decimate. I don't think that getting the Darius down on your opponent's turn is super impactful.
Yeah, and... Yeah, I got to agree. It feels a lot better to play it right before your opponent's going to end. Then you can open attack with the Darius and kind of require or some sort of good response. But now we're just going to see 2 turns of this Darius kind of just chilling on board here. It does give him the opportunity to play both Decimates now. I was going to say play the Decimate, but now he can play both and go into the following turn of the Harrowing. So I think this is just a 2 Decimate Harrowing next turn victory.
Yeah, and the Disciple even lines up well into this, and that does mean that WindingGod is going to go down to 1, and unless he has a deny for that Harrowing or lethal off the top, as he will, you know, Nolagold's going to be at 4 life after this Mystic Shot comes out, if that's what WindingGod wants to do. WindingGod's going to be at 1, but 1 ain't 0, and Nolagold, if deny comes out onto this Harrowing, is just going to lose the game. But if it doesn't, there is a Legion Grenadier in the death pool that represents 2 damage no matter what WindingGod has, unless it's another Will of Ionia. But he's not going to have enough Will of Ionias for everything on Nolagold's side of the field. But the Mystic Shot at base does indicate that WindingGod does have lethal. Any copies of Ezreal in the hand are currently represented as Mystic Shots. You know, I don't think we've seen a lot of Mystic Shots come out. There's Ezreal's Mystic Shot number 1, and it looks like Nolagold will be taking his first loss here in round number 9.
That's not good. That's really... Wow, and there's the other Legion Grenadier. So Nolagold can definitely put this away. The problem is WindingGod, like you said, is almost definitely going to have something to just kill him outright with the 2 damage right here. Or maybe he was looking for a top deck. There could be the situation where WindingGod's thinking, I'm going to lose if I don't try to win. So maybe I'm just going to go for it and hope I top deck a Mystic Shot. And if that's the case, we could still see Nola win here.
If that's the case, then I imagine with his last 2 mana, he would have fired off the mushrooms just to try and, you know, get that RNG
that's a good
win.
point. Yeah.
Even if you can just put your opponent at 1, then you still open up that Static Shock top deck for yourself.
Yeah, that's actually a very good point, and I think you nailed it. So I don't see him not having game, because that would give him the most opportunities to do as much damage as possible. And I think he is. He just played the Harrowing, hovered the eye. One of the things I love about this game is being able to do that. And he does see that he has the other Legion Grenadier. Yep, and there is the Ezreal's Mystic Shot for the win. Rip Nolagold. And my only disappointment is that, because I am kind of rooting for Nolagold here overall because of his casino deck, and that's my disappointment is we didn't see the casino deck. So we're gonna have to wait for a top cut to see this sweet casino deck in action now.
Yeah, but that does, you know, he's still 8-1. He's still in the top cut. We'll get to catch up with him a little bit later on.
All right, and that will wrap it up. As always, everybody, stay healthy, stay positive. I hope it just works for you. Peace out.